Welcome back to another episode of the Red Pill Cartel podcast. Awesome guest tonight. Uh, front sing of the band Phantom High from Toronto, Peril Erinyes. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. It's
My
kind of
pleasure.
short notice. We were DMing the other day and I was like, fuck it. You want to do it Saturday? And you're like, cool, let's go.
Let's do the thing.
So I guess we'll get started with your history in music here. It's gonna be a little bit different for you, I think, because I do talk about a lot of occult subjects on this show. So
Sure.
if you want to get into that later too, that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, go back to when you first started, realizing what it is you wanted to do as an artist and started practicing music and developing your skills and how you went from band to band to this project.
So, when I started playing guitar maybe when, I don't know, probably 14 or 15. I was always interested in music ever since I can remember. Like my first memories are like my dad had an 8-track tape collection, and I kind of took ownership of ABBA, Barry White, and the Doors, and so it probably explains a lot of things about me. Um,
I still remember those 8 tracks.
yeah, and then he even had one in his car. I remember, like even into the '90s, he was still rocking the 8 tracks. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
wow, Dad, you're a living time machine. So yeah, he would have like "Bat Out of Hell," Meatloaf going in there, and a bunch
Badass.
of other stuff. He put me onto AC/DC by accident. I just in his collection. That was a cassette tape, but um, so yeah. But at some point, I think I got into guitar, and I still kind of just consider myself a guitar player. Um, Vocals came way later. Uh, and I started playing in some bands, and we did some tours, and I was underage, and they were sneaking me in through like doors to, adult venues to play when I was like 18. And we did some stuff, and then that fell apart. I lived in a rural community, and I moved to Boston for a while, moved to Florida for a while, lived in Orlando, Kissimmee, Miami, all around there. And I think at some point I kind of became disenchanted with rock music, as it were.
Mhm.
Uh, and I've always had a connection to hip hop and different things like that. And I can't even really explain what happened. I had moved to Florida, and I was writing rhyme stuff for fun, just because it's like a crossword puzzle to me. It's interesting to write and create those things. So I almost did it like
Like
exercise.
rap lyrics and stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's very it's not fucking easy, that's for sure.
no, there is a thing to it. Um, and then I had met some friends, and we were messing around, and next thing I know, we were going to Daytona to somebody's friend's studio to record some stuff on like ADATs. Like it was crazy, the shit we were using at the time. There was no Pro Tools or Logic or any of that. And next thing I know, we're doing stuff on BET Soundstage, and then I got signed onto a record label down there, several, but the first big one was owned by an NBA player. And the next thing I knew, I was, doing stuff on BET and different things like that.
Hmm.
Um, there was some stuff going on, and eventually there was an incident where um, the the studio that the CEO owned was inside of his residence, and somebody robbed it, and they shot the place up, and they killed one of our friends on the front lawn.
Oh
And
shit.
yeah, and it hit him really hard, and he bounced to the Timberwolves. He went to Minnesota, and I stuck around, and I went down to Miami for a bit, and I did some stuff with Pitbull because we had a similar circle of acquaintances and friends in the industry. And but even then, I think I was starting to kind of miss the freedom of expression and the amount of autonomy that you have as a hip hop artist, and I wanted to do more. And that's when I started to kind of relapse into Corn, and I think Queen of the Damned was out at the time, and I really got into that soundtrack. And all of a sudden, I just had this powerful wave come over me, and I knew that's where I was supposed to. That was a part of me that was missing, that had been neglected, and I felt very angry with myself for leaving that, because I kept on imagining where I would be as a musician if I had have stayed the course, with guitar and things like that. So I moved home to Canada in 2007-ish, and I start in the East Coast in New Brunswick. That's where my family's from originally.
Ah, Maritimer.
Yeah, and put together a band, and there was some interesting, things that went on, but we can get into the details later. I'll try and keep the overview free of digression.
Sure.
Uh, and we decided that we needed to get somewhere where there's a music scene, and we figured, well, it has to be Toronto, right, or Vancouver. But at the time, everybody was saying Toronto's it. So
Who's on board with you at this time?
so at this point in time, my guitar player currently, Seven, she was in the earlier incarnation of the band, and I was a guitar player, and we had a singer named Jeff, fucking amazing singer, and we all moved here to Toronto, Halloween night actually of 2009. And for whatever reason, it just didn't. We tried, and we wasted a lot of money. We couldn't find members. We couldn't find anybody that saw the vision. And eventually we broke up in 2014, 2015, after only managing to do one show ever in like 10
And
years. Yeah, we just couldn't find members to fill it out. So uh, then my guitar player and I, we kind of were like, okay, we got to reset, figure some things out. I was writing, I was learning how to produce and learning my way around, Logic and different things like that. And I proceeded to go on like a hardcore from 8 in the morning until sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning the next, just 7 days a week at the time. And learning how to produce, learning how to be my own engineer, learning how to make us sound like bands that were signed, essentially.
so that you
And
do have to spend money on a producer and stuff like that,
yeah,
right?
I mean, we did that too, right? And it just always seemed that no matter what the prestige or the name was of the producer or how much money, we never got what we wanted. We always got a junior product when we were trying to sound pro. And I was like, how can that be? And I'm like, if I can almost do it and I don't know anything, not shitting on anybody, but
Right.
it's all in understanding the vision, right? So if you don't
Mhm.
understand the context of the band,
You're
how
not going
can
to get the sound right.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're not like, we don't sound like the fucking Trues, or or Tragically Hip. With all due respect to those bands, I love those
Yeah.
bands, but that's not, like, we're not in trying to do one take and be like, yeah, this is live off the floor. I don't give a shit about that. I'm about the writing and the creation of a piece. So um yeah, so I started learning how to do it myself. And in 2016, it was our last year. Seven and I both went to Centennial for electronics engineering certificates. And we were just finishing that, and we were on like spring break, and we were binge watching animes on Netflix. And so there were two in particular. One was Knights of Sidonia. It's called something else in Japanese, but it was licensed to Netflix, and they, wrote it over in English and all of that. Um, but
Muse has a song called that, right?
really, I did
Yeah,
not.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure. Yeah, yeah. But it has something to do with Mars, does it not?
yeah. The particular series did not. It was um, Earth was destroyed, and everybody got on a giant space station environment, that they had learned to grow trees and things like that, and they're just coasting through space, trying to carry on humanity. And the elites, the they all wore these really stoic, expressionless masks. And through some of the events that happened, there were like life and death situations and different things like that, where you knew they were terrified under the mask, but the mask was so regal and just unmoved by any sense. I found something in that kind of touched me, and I was like, that would be cool. And I know, Slipknot and those bands that have the masks and everything, and I love them, and they're pioneers and everything, but it was completely different. It was, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and the mask was the beginning of it. And so I started fleshing out this. I started being the muse for what I envisioned, and the what we wanted to do was to put the product out there and have it catch some attention, and then maybe people would be interested in filling out the roster. And it didn't happen. And I spent about 2 years before we ever did a show or even ever had a lineup, just rehearsing, learning posturing, and just how I wanted to be. And the idea was that when we found that person, they could just take the mask and take over, and I would fall back to being a guitar player. And by the time we got somewhere where there were people to that were willing to do that,
Your
I
vocals were probably being developed at the time.
nobody had the flair. Nobody had, I guess, the conviction, maybe is the word. Nobody had the conviction that I had, to, because it came from me. So I guess who better would know what that is. And so it just came to be like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to be a guitar player anymore, and I guess I'm going to be a front person for
You're
this.
gonna be Peril.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have I've got some baggage, like we all do, but I have dysphoria and dysmorphia and some other fun things. And so the mask actually really, it gave me a place to grow. And I
Mhm.
kind of, more than just, I kind of grew into the personality, almost like it was, for, if we're going to talk about paranormal stuff, almost like a form of possession that I felt take over, which I'm sure is just things in my life that were suppressed, and that, and it just gave me the opportunity to really expand and be who I felt like I should be on stage.
Well,
And
there's a lot of artists out there, like such as Beyonce, where she has her Sasha Fierce character, right? And a lot of conspiracy theorists talk about how, like, oh, she's possessed by a demon and this and that. I
yeah,
just think that kind of thing is just something that allows you to express what you want to express without having to hide anything, you know? It's just another persona that you can
Yeah,
put on. Like Carl Jung talks about stuff like that, like the persona, right? So
yeah, it's just basically giving yourself permission to exude and espouse these artistic creations and things that don't necessarily, match up to who you are or who you were, um, because of anything from appearance to, just artistic. If you don't feel like your appearance matches what you want to exude artistically,
mm.
I mean, that's the reason we all dress up, I guess. But um, yeah, it just
I think it kind of makes it more genuine though when you have certain character traits that you don't want people to see and you put the mask on and then it allows people to see, right?
yeah,
So I don't
yeah,
think there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's more genuine in your case since you've had these feelings about yourself and you just put the mask on and it just you come alive, right?
it is. It's just like that too. When and if anything, the masked version of myself has taught myself a lot of things about myself, in daily life, and it's allowed me to push through a lot of those things and grow and get rid of a lot of insecurities, and my temperament improved much better, and I just, yeah, you don't feel as, um in
Restricted.
conversation, yeah, you don't feel like you need to I don't feel like I need to prove anything anymore as in my daily life, because everything that I wanted to do, I'm doing. And that depends, whether we're successful and whether we, sign this next label deal or whatever. That's all of that's kind of inconsequential to what it meant to me personally. Yeah.
It's like the mask is your self therapy almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
It's super
timeless.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how like because there's a lot of people out there who I believe they hold back a lot in their character in daily life. Even myself included. Like I hold back on a lot of stuff, but when I do a podcast, I can actually just be like this is my little platform where I get to
Right.
express myself and be myself. Because even there's people out there that like coworkers and whatnot who've listened to my show and they're like, dude, you are such a different person on there. It's like you become yourself. And I said, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
it
like
is.
it's cathartic for me.
Everybody should have that. I feel like the world would be so much more laid back and less tense if everybody had their place where they could just be themselves, unrestricted, not at the expense of other people, obviously, but yes. Um, and yeah, no, I agree, and it's a great thing. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Must be
No,
the
that's
edible.
okay. Is it kicking in already?
Yeah, it's a slow burn, but yeah.
So we were talking about the state of the band and your growth as front woman and where you were going with a record label or next record deal, whatever.
Yeah. Um, I'm sorry. You're telling me where we left off. I got you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Is
So
just
you have about five or six. Well, you have the EP, which has what, six, seven songs on it.
I think so. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
cover of Let's Dance on there, which is awesome.
Thank you.
The other cover of that Brian Adams song, Run to You.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
very
was
cool. Very cool.
that was something
Uh
that I wrote like back in 2014. So, and it's also like one of the first tracks that I ever produced and recorded myself. So I hear it sometimes, and I like that I did it, but then I cringe a lot when I hear it.
Most artists do that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of artists don't even like to listen to their own stuff because they're very self-critical, right? Even my podcast, like I don't listen to my own show. I just put it
Really,
out there once it's done, and I'm like, okay, you guys enjoy, you know?
that's a discipline all in itself, like to be
Yeah.
able to do that, because I'll tell you, I can't leave anything alone. Like, I'm just pulling up stuff that I recorded 8 years ago and totally destroying it inside the session and ripping it apart and redoing it. And I'm like, there, now it's good. But then in 2 years, I listen to it again and I'm like, oh, I've learned how to do this. I've learned parallel compression. I've learned I got to do this, and I got to switch my guitar tones up, and I didn't EQ this right. And yeah, so you have a good that's a good thing to be able to do, is just to put something down. And I've heard other artists talk about it as well. And they're like, no, that's done. It's closed. We're done with that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, but that guitar tone, I could make that so much better.
Of
I
course.
remember what we were talking about. We were talking about how people uh, tend to be restrained, and they kind of pull back when they in their regular life and things like that. And
Right.
that's another thing for me, was that I had to learn that lesson too, right? I would do something that I thought was pushing a boundary, and then I would go back and listen to it, and I'm like, no, that's still just kind of medium. And I think that's an exercise that a lot of people need to do, is if that's something that they're interested in, is to really just send it, like, fuck it. Just go all the way, be as ridiculous as you can, and then see what that looks like. Because a lot of
Mhm.
the time, you're so nuanced and articulate and detailed, and you're looking at things, you're micromanaging the aspects of your personality, and other people don't see it that way. You think you're doing something that is everybody's looking at, and nobody noticed it. And it's the same artistically. A lot of people, I think, they feel like they're up on a podium and everybody's looking at them for doing the thing they're doing, but they don't realize they're not on the podium yet. Trust me, you will know when you're on the podium, because you will get a visceral reaction. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, so that was an exercise for me, was just pushing things further than I thought was far enough. And in doing that, we did our first show in Toronto, March of 2019. It was the first time we'd really been on stage with an audience. And I just remember coming out, and I have stage fright. I'm terrified most of the time. You would never know it, because I kind of go into a trance mode when the song drops. But pre-show, I am terrified. I'm just like all in knots, and it's always a thing. But
I
I
know the
remember,
feeling. I've done one show in my early 20s when I was with a band, and beforehand I puked up chocolate milk in the bathroom,
it's
and then I
real.
went up on stage, and as soon as I hit that first note vocally, okay, it's on.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster, right? Like, I always use that analogy. You're going up, and everybody's like clinched up, and it's chunk 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 chunk, and then you get to the peak, and you're like, holy fuck, I don't know if I want to do this. And then it just drop, and then it's just like,
Do you
and
get
then
that every show?
every show, yeah, every
Okay.
show, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't give a shit about being on stage. I'm fine once everything starts. Is the weird part. It's just the
The
build up that,
preamble. Yeah.
yeah, because I sound checks make me nervous. And is the what's going to fail? Are my in ears going to work? Whatever. Because we're not a signed band yet, and we don't have budget for the things that professional bands have per se. We use what we can, and so some of our stuff is kind of Jar Jar Binks. It's just kind of Misa got the in ears. uh, but yeah, No, so yeah, and I'll always remember that first show because I looked down and there was just people with their mouth open, or they had a massive grin. There was cameras up everywhere, and I was just like, wow, this is registering with people. So um, we stayed the course, and we just kept on, stayed on the journey. The hard part is to not become a parody of yourself, and that's why I'm always trying to change looks. I'm trying to change
Yeah,
stuff that we're putting into the music, and I want to establish that early on. Like Deftones or Madonna or bands that they're always changing, so you come to expect that from them. Whereas somebody like, maybe, I don't know, Metallica, for example, everybody really likes, for the most part, the first Metallica, and so when they do something that's more in a pop format, a lot of people rail against it, or they're appalled
sure.
by it, or and so I just want to always keep putting out different stuff, because it gets boring trying to just always write that same first album again. And
Yeah.
we change, right? Like, we musically we change. I think when I started this journey, I was listening to bands from my, like, Corn and things like, and Deftones, and I think
I know you mentioned one of my favorite bands of all time in a previous interview that I skimmed through, Faith No More.
Mike Patton and Lane Staley are
Unbelievable.
just like, there's a piece of them in every single thing that I do. Just it's not even, it's because I what am I looking to say? My formative years as a musician is saturated with them, and so it's not even a question of pulling from their influence. It's, they are a part of what I call music,
Mhm.
when definitively. So everything I do, it has like a something that Mike Patton inspired, or something that Lane Staley,
You
or
kind of you kind
Jerry.
of channel them in a sense when you're doing what you do, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's other things in there too, like, the first the first record, album, cassette that I ever bought was in the fourth or fifth grade. And I still remember I saved $5 and change. And my mom and my stepdad took me to Canadian Tire. They had like they had a music section at the time. And I bought Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. And that was the first uh, album of my own that I ever bought. So I mean, there's lots of influence in there too from that stuff. But yeah,
Those are your main influences, I gather. But
yeah.
now there's a lot of what's some of the newer stuff that you really tap into lately?
So I have just been on like a year-long binge of Bad Omens. Um, I fucking love their songwriting, and the lack of genre. How they just go, like, there may be EDM stuff, there may be trap or hip hop stuff. Some of their stuff you could put right on a Slipknot album, and then the next song could be The Weekend. And
Yeah,
I, I
it's
kind
like
of,
Sleep Token as well. Sleep Token is like that as well.
yeah, absolutely. Like, just that's some of the stuff that I've really been digging. There's Kim Dracula. I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
No,
Um,
but I know that's a Deftones song.
yeah, and I suppose that's probably where they got the name from.
I know because
But
when I saw that song title when I first bought that Saturday Night Rest, I was like, Kim Dracula? What the fuck is that? It's so odd.
yeah, um, what else am I listening to? A lot of, like, Carpenter Brute, and I
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah.
like, sacrilege to say, but I am a massive, like, the maybe not the last single that she released, but like the Midnight Sky, and there was a duet with Dua Lipa or something like that. I think Miley Cyrus actually was like my Spotify Wrapped number one.
That's crazy. It's
Yeah,
funny. I was in the beer store yesterday, and I always bring my phone with me because they always play some cool shit. And I'm like, what song is that? So I got
right.
my phone with me just to Shazam it, right? And I heard this song yesterday. I was like, oh, this is a cool song. Who's this? I had no idea. And I Shazammed it, and it was Malibu by Miley Cyrus.
Yeah,
And I was like,
there's
what
cool.
the
So do you know who do you know Max Martin? Do you know who
No.
that? So Max Martin is a producer songwriter from I think Sweden. So he was brought in with a big name producer as an intern when they were recording Ace of Base, whenever that was in the probably late '80s or early '90s. I'm not
Yeah, it's
sure.
like 1991 or so.
Yeah, and he was really good, and the guy kept him on, and he slowly became like a crazy songwriter. And so now, if you Google Max Martin and his song catalog, this is a guy that's responsible for almost every top 40 song in the last 20 years, 30 years, maybe. Like
Wow.
NSYNC, Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, The Weeknd, Miley Cyrus, everything Katy Perry has ever written. Taylor Swift, some of her stuff. I know she has her own thing going on. Um, Pink, all of Pink's hit songs, like he's written all of them, and even that Bon Jovi "Have a Nice Day," he wrote that. Like the Blinding Lights, The Weeknd. Um, it's just like a crazy list you won't believe when you go down it. That spans for like 3 decades, and he's just this songwriting machine. So I don't like everything he writes, and I'm not like a super like I don't have Taylor Swift's catalog or anything like that, but there's songs there where I recognize the artfulness of their construction and how they are. And when I started this project, kind of the only thing I had to go off of that was kind of a mantra was that I loved in the 90s and 2000s when heavy bands covered a pop song.
Hmm.
I loved that shit. You
I
know,
also love it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think Alien Ant Farm started that off for me when they did that Michael Jackson cover,
Smooth Criminal, yeah.
Smooth Criminal. Yeah. And I was just like, this is it, man. This is what I want to do. I want to be a band that writes songs like this. So I went into learning how to write pop songs and what these things were. And so I study people like Max Martin and all of these other artists that are writing these things. And that's essentially what I do. I write the pop song and then I fuck it all up with what we do.
Make it your own. Yeah, make it
Yeah.
your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that too. Like one of my favorites was Lacuna Coil when they did Losing My Religion.
I know. So good.
Holy shit, was that awesome.
And what was
Herb has a cover on every one of their albums.
the cover of that Kate Bush song? Is it Kate Bush running up
Running
the
Up the Hill, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The band that covered that. Yeah, there's so many people just out there, heavy bands just killing these songs. And you know I it's hard for me to, I guess we're kind of like alternative metal is what you would put us in, but it's hard because I don't necessarily consider us a metal band.
Mhm. Actually, the first song I heard from you guys was Exorcist,
Yeah,
and it very much had a ministry flair to it in
dude,
my mind.
you nailed
Yeah.
it you nailed it. That drum beat, I so when I write, the first thing that I write is the drums every time. I don't even know what I'm going to write. I get a groove going, and then I'll either just put it on loop and pick up the guitar and just jam to it, or I'll do synth or anything, and I just kind of go where it leads me. And a lot of times I'll be like, here's a band. So there's a duality to this. Some bands do it, and I feel like they do it too much, where they'll have an influential song or a vibe, and they'll essentially write that fucking song again, or they'll write like three songs into one, but you can tell every single piece where it came from. I hate that shit, and that's I don't think that's good artistry. The whole, I get it. It was a hit once, it can be a hit again, but with The Exorcist, Stigmata,
Yeah,
it was
that's
that
exactly what it felt like to me. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, and like, I just want to have that energy, like that, just that groove. And so that's where I started. And the beat is different, but it's the same vibe, it's the same energy.
Mhm.
And I don't think anything I do in there sounds like Ministry. Um, but that beat definitely has
Well,
the,
especially the vocals. Like the vocals are not Ministry like,
yeah,
in my opinion. But definitely the whole overall vibe of the song is like, because there's a lot of repeated lyrics, and it just reminds me of Al Jorgensen, how he sings, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. That's an awesome catch too. I A lot of that comes too because even though I played in a rock band in my formative years in my teens and early 20s, uh, my songwriting really, it was the place where I learned that was doing hip hop music. And so what happened a lot of times, we'd have producers and they would give us a catalog of beats or music, and we would just sit down with that and just play it over and over again and write these things. And so a lot of my songwriting, that's probably why I start with the drums first when I write, and I don't write anything until there's music to write it to. And then I just kind of feel the emotion that that music presents to me, and then that determines what I am going to talk about or what I'm going to do in the song. But also, my guitar playing, I grew up with like Eddie Van Halen and Steve Vai, and I love all of that stuff. And there was a time in my life where I did a lot of that, but I found that there's not a lot of songs in being a guitar prodigy. There's not a lot of, if you're looking to have a song on the radio, maybe that's not going to necessarily take you there. And what I learned with rap was a lot of these producers, I eventually started making my own beats. And one of the things we would do, we would just take a sound that didn't, shouldn't fit, and we would just fucking hammer it into place, and just chop things and change, the way that it's the thing sounded, or flip things. But and that's what I do with a lot of my riffs on guitar. A lot of my stuff is very simple. I like to draw from like Tony Iommi and Alice in Chains and things like that. Like I like doomy sounding riffs, but I make them almost, I'll put a loop on and I'll just have a riff that shouldn't fit there, and I'll rush the ending or something to make it sound like a loop on purpose. Like
Right,
I'll
right.
purposefully fuck it
You
up a
make
little.
shit fit where it shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's kind of a thing that I do with Phantom High. Like a lot of my riffs, you'll hear that repetitiveness, and yeah, probably sometimes I do that as well with the vocals, and which is where that comes from.
That's awesome. I love it. I love hearing stuff like this. Like that's why I love interviewing musicians, because I'm a little bit of one myself. Like I have the ear, I have the talent.
Yeah,
I just don't put it into practice, but I understand all the nuances when it comes to songwriting and stuff like that, right? So
yeah,
that's why I thought
you
I'd
know,
take my podcast in this kind of direction where I'm interviewing more musicians, because it's just I'm so passionate about it.
and it's good because if you get something from that, if that resonates with you, then the more better your podcast is, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Because like I mean, I'm in a niche category as it is. Like, not everybody's into conspiracy theories and shit like that. But I kind of I kind of break it down so it's like it's not always the same thing. I always have at least one guest on, and they always have something to bring to the table, and I always have something to say back. But with music, it's my mind is just like, oh, it's like on overdrive. Like, there's so many things I want to ask, you know?
Yeah.
And especially with you, because like your persona, your image, you got the 666 in there. Were you raised in any kind of a religious background at all?
So my family was Baptist. My stepfather was Catholic. And Seven, my guitar player, she grew up in a very Catholic family. And yeah, like a lot of the stuff we do, and the symbolism and things like that. Like, I consider myself agnostic. I don't really. I My main thing is I rail against organized religion. It's not that I, I don't have anything against any particular religion to the point where it becomes a corporate entity that
Exactly. Yeah. 501c.
yeah. And so we do a lot of that stuff as pushback. It's not so much that I will elaborate on some stuff. I do have some, I guess, for lack of a better word, pagan Wiccan, influences that occurred, and um so they play a part, when I was formative in creating and learning who I was going to be. Those are aspects, and some of them I practice loosely, uh, but I'm not really. I don't really claim those. I just kind of
You
go
like you
with.
wouldn't consider yourself like a Satanist or anything like that, right? You wouldn't label
No,
yourself as anything like
no, I
I'm this
follow
or
those.
I'm that, right?
Yeah, I follow those sites because a lot of those, what they call satanic organizations, are more just atheist organizations that,
Right.
and so in that sense, I do follow those. But uh, do I think there's a red guy under the earth that's waiting for me when I die? I don't. You know, um, on the other side of things, there are things that I feel like have given tangibility for some people to those beliefs that we can't explain. Do I think there is spiritual things and energies and dimensions and different things that we are incapable of either comprehending or seeing? I absolutely do. And I,
Mhm.
I believe in that because I've had those experiences, and maybe someday there'll be a scientific explanation that explains that. But right now we're not there yet, so I don't like to name it. I don't pretend I know what it is, and that's what I feel with a lot of different religion things. There's some people that they get an inner peace out of it, or they feel like they have, you know uh, an autopilot that lets them kind of not worry about death all the time, or not have to explain the horrible things and, atrocities that happen. uh, and unfortunately, I wish I could do that. I would if I could. I just can't. I can't snap into it. I've experienced too much and learned too much, and I have too much of an analytical brain to try and assess things, to let myself just be like, oh
Fully invest yourself in one kind of mindset or belief system. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm the
yeah,
same way. I'm the same way. People ask me because I consider myself a spiritual person. But people ask me like, "Are you a Christian? You're a Christian, right?" I'm like, "No, I don't like having labels on me, like especially religious labels." But
yeah,
and somebody asked me that today, and I said, and they said, "Well, do you believe in God?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I believe in a creator, and I believe in like a source of where our consciousness comes from, but I
Yeah.
don't want to give it a name because
Yes.
what if like these people in these religions are worshiping some kind of fucking evil entity, you know? Who knows?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know anything. And I get it. We're on a fucking, like they say, we're on a rock that's speeding through space around a ball of fire. And
Yeah.
that's all we really fucking know at this point. And
Nobody
we
knows shit. And if they claim to do, then it's like that song Carry On My Wayward Son. That one line is what I resonate with. If I claim to be a wise man, it surely means I don't know.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I I get it in some senses. I just personally I won't allow myself to just sit into I'm already in my own alternate reality, so like I don't need but yeah, but no, I don't. So when I lived in Florida, um I went through it. I could have come home at any point, but I stayed because I was super spiteful or stubborn or whatever. I was living at one point. I was living under underpasses on Cayley Avenue and I-4, and just working out of a labor pool. I was always working. It just the way that the things are in the states. If you don't have credit or if you don't have any type of government support, you lose your job. You're on the fucking street with your family,
Kid
and
Row.
you're
Yeah.
alone. And there's no help for you. And I think that explains a lot of the tension and the visceral division that happens down there. It's because there's a lot of over the top stuff in the states, and it's because it's an over the top energy there. That people live in, and they take their fucking jobs serious. And that's where a lot of that you know energy comes from. But yeah, so I was down there, and just suffering, trying to make things pull together. Sometimes I was doing really good, sometimes I was doing really bad. And at one point, around the last 2 years that I was there, I had a relationship. My girlfriend and I split up, and she left and left me with two fucking cats and an apartment that I couldn't afford. And I had got laid off, and I was doing like independent contracting, and I got fucking stuck for two bills. People just sold the property that I was renovating and bounced to another state. And it there's legal action that can be taken, but if you don't have much money saved up, you can't afford a fucking lawyer, and therefore you
Right.
can't take court, and it's just going to end up costing you more money. And it's better sometimes to just cut and run if you can't afford to sustain that. Um, and so
What do
I
you
ended.
what do you find is the better country to be in? Because I believe you have dual citizenship, correct?
I do, yeah, yeah. I'm a dual citizen. Um, so we're very similar in some senses, but I think that the Canadian support system allows us a what should I say? What should I call this? I don't want to say the wrong thing and sound like I'm it. There's a lot of people here who can afford to have political views and ethical views and things like that, and you should always have them. I'm not saying, oh, everybody's this or that, but the US is more of a, if I lose my fucking house because I've lost my job because of this political happenstance, my family is fucking homeless.
Right.
Here, it's like, well, we'll just go on support, and there's a safety net here. There isn't one in the States, and I think that's the big difference that you're going to see, because here there's a safety net And that safety net allows you to be less focused on food, the next meal, and it gives us the luxury of contemplating ethical situations. It gives us the benefit of being more kind and having the ability to, really embrace that aspect of humanity, because we don't have our backs against the wall like a lot of the people in this particular my economic class, in the States. And I feel like that's so to answer your question, I find life much more livable here in Canada than I did in the States. But artistically, I feel like these two conditions, you can tell Canadian artists versus American artists, for example. They're very different. Like that was one thing that I got with this project and the last one was, we do over the top shit. We play over the top shit. We're aggressive. We're loud. We say flamboyant things, and we do flamboyant things. And the thing that we always got, and it fucking pissed me off so bad, was, oh, you guys are just an American. You guys are trying to be an American band, or you guys sound American. You're not writing Canadian music. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? I'm in Canada. I live in Canada. I am Canadian, and I'm writing music in Canada. How can I not be, I am just writing the things I feel. And that's where I realized that, because of
Was everybody supposed to sound like the Tragically Hip or Rush?
did I not sing fucking songs about the Blue Nose or some shit? Like, I don't know, like, what the fuck am I supposed to?
Log driver.
Yeah, like, no disrespect to anybody who does that. I always have to give those disclaimers in this day and age. Like, I get it, but it's not everybody's thing. And some of us, we have life experiences, we have damage, we have things that we want to cathartically espouse in our art and in our music. And we have feelings that we want to get out. Like, we have aggressive things that we want to, we can't all be talking about fucking porcelain plates and fucking the Mayflower or whatever the fuck, like, I just, so yeah, it's like, oh, way to sell out the Canadian music scene was one comment. And I was like, are you fucking serious? Like, really? Like, that's
You can't let that shit get under your skin, though.
no, it was the, it's the principle, right? It's not the actual thing. It's like, you got a lot of nerve to come at me in that with that energy when you're closed off or you're limited, and a lot of these people, they'd never been out of their hometown, which again, that's fine, but don't speak on worldly things if you've never experienced worldly things, like with that authority.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah,
There's a lot of armchair / keyboard warriors out there that, like, because I like a lot of different stuff, like when it comes to art, like film and music and stuff like that. And people will be like, they'll look at me like, you actually like this shit, And I'm like, can you do better?
yeah.
That's the thing I always say. Like, when somebody says, "Oh, this movie fucking sucks," and when I enjoy it, I'm like, make a better one then.
Make a better one, or just don't fucking watch it. Like,
Yeah.
watch one you do like, what do you like? And you're right, a lot of these people, they've never written a song, or they've never suffered to, to they've never martyred themselves or their lives to a thing, so I only take that with so much, I only take it to heart so much. But yeah, what do you say?
It doesn't matter what kind of creative outlet that you're partaking in. There's always going to be love and hate directed towards you,
Yeah, there
and you
has
can't
to be.
let, you
Yeah,
can't let any of the haters. I would say let the haters provoke you to do better, you know?
And dude, the fucking more that somebody hates what you do, the more somebody else is gonna love that shit for the rest of their life. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
it's you can't. It's almost like you can't really be interesting unless you're hated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I
If
agree.
you are, you're just vanilla, or it's that's the thing. If nobody's gunning for you, then you're probably not really making a mark on anything.
Hmm. One of my favorite things to do is um promote other artists or podcasters. I'll make a reel of another podcast that I'm listening to and put it out there and say, listen to this show, you know? And now that I have my own platform to do this kind of thing, I feel like it's not about me, it's about every guest that I have on and what they have to contribute to my show. So, and for example, you and your music, like this is what I want people to hear. Not necessarily myself, but like I just enjoy like showing the world or my audience how other people are because everybody has their own story. Everybody's interesting. You get them to open up, and it's just such a beautiful thing to me.
Yeah,
And I wish
I
more people would do that. Like, I always felt that I was the person to hear a new song and show them and go, dude, look at this shit. This is fucking awesome, right? And then they'll probably be like, it's okay, you know. But whatever, I showed them, you know.
yeah,
But this is the way for me to do it on a little bit of a wider scale, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think we're all kind of doing that in our own way, right? Even as a musician, or it's not necessarily the medium, it's the energy that you're putting out there that there's a resonance, and there's a bounce back resonance that comes from the putting it out there. And yeah, I'm here for it. I agree.
Yep. Because even going back to the spiritual aspects of things, I feel like every human on this planet is a drop in the vast ocean of consciousness, and like the bigger of a splash you can make, the better, right? So that's how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Make the biggest splash you can.
How much time do you have?
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
Yeah.
Let's get into your paranormal experiences. Actually, first before that, what have you dove deep into occult subjects, rabbit holes, anything like that that really influenced your persona as Peril?
So yes, I apologize because I do these long winding stories, because I could talk about music and art and all of these things forever. We'll be here
Yeah.
until 6 in the morning. I just don't stop. Uh, but when I was talking about being in Florida, losing my job and losing my apartment, I was living out of a Chrysler LHS with a 7 string guitar, my fucking cat, and an amp head. And
I'm still here, by the way. I'm just getting another
okay,
beer.
okay, no worries. Um, so I had one of the jobs I was doing was for a Jamaican lady that was a mutual acquaintance of one of my friends, and we just kind of really clicked. She was going through some stuff, and I was in a way, and she hired me to renovate her house. This was after there was a lot of really bad storms, one after the other, in Central Florida at this point in the mid 2000s, and she took me in, and she was like, take a room in my house. And she had a really, really nice house. And we became really close. She's like a second mom to me. And she had moved here from Jamaica. And her lineage, her heritage, her religion was based in Catholicism, but it was essentially Santeria,
Yep.
and,
Yep.
and voodoo. And they would have, she would bring down voodoo priests from New York, and they would have the whole family, and it would be like a big reunion. And um, there were sacrifices and things like that, which I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm too empathetic. I'm a big animal lover, and it's hard for me to see that, but that's part of their thing and how they grew up, and I let them to it. But so she introduced me to Santeria and voodoo and orishas and things like that. And I'd had some experiences earlier in my life with different supernatural things, but I'll tell you, staying in that place was there were some things that happened that I can't explain. And so a lot of the things that her persona and the things that she instilled in me, and I saw them. I saw them with my own eyes, these things manifest and different things like that. And so I definitely carry that energy with me on stage. I have Orishas here, and I, like I said, loosely, I wouldn't call myself somebody that does voodoo or anything like that, but I definitely acknowledge, and those are part of who I am, and those traditions and things. And I honor them. I don't necessarily define myself by them, but I do have.
Well, it was part of your experience and it's part of your life now, like no matter what, right? So there's no taking that away from you. So
Yeah, and I feel like it's saturated in me, like it's a part of me now. So when I go on stage, I take her with me, and so I have most of my most of my adult life I spent in the Black community. So I also have a very strong allegiance to that aspect of things, and I consider my family down there as much family as a blood relative.
sure.
Um, when I had so yeah, I don't, and it's always been that way. Even before, you know, there was a point in my life where I had never lived in a place where there was a Black person, for example. But when I was little, at my grandparents' place, there was a guy that used to come, and I remember him being in the living room, and he was a Black man, and I can remember running, jumping on him on the sofa, and he would play with me, and he was super nice. And so one day, this is kind of weird. I was sitting at the dinner table with my grandparents, who I lived with a large portion of my life. They raised me, and it came into my head to ask, because it was always an odd thing that I always wanted to ask, but I just never thought too much of it. And I said, "Grampy, who was the Black man that used to come here and visit when I was really little?" And there was just a silence, and they both looked at each other, and they looked at me, and they were like, "There has never been a Black person in this house since it was built, ever." And
Oh,
I I can't explain it. So, but felt I've always felt tied to that. Like I've always felt like I had family, and I can't explain it. It could be just some weird recurring dream that I had as a kid, or you can read more into it. I can't put a name on it. I can't call it, honestly, but um, I feel like if there is such thing as different lives and different dimensions or different incarnations or things like that, that's probably definitely something that would fall into that category.
Mhm. How young were you when you had this experience with this black man or
I'd had
apparition rather?
I would had to have been, if judging by what I remember about like my stature and the size of things, and I would have been maybe this, so I couldn't have been more than two,
Wow.
three, no, two. It was earlier than three because I know where I lived when I was three, and I know kind of the time frame and the people that were around. I remember that very
That's
vividly.
that something gave you a core memory that you would never forget, right?
Yeah, and it's always kind of been there. And it's, when I moved to Florida, and it wasn't like, yeah, I want to get into rap music, and I want to, try and integrate myself into it just happened. It was just like I met people that it felt like I had known them my whole life, or it felt like I had, and I spent a lot of time being the only white person for miles and miles and miles, and going to clubs that white people didn't go to. And there was times where people were like, what the fuck is this person doing here? But for the most part, it was like I belonged, like I had was just there, and there wasn't any effort, there wasn't any awkwardness, there wasn't any weirdness, and those people accepted me and I accepted them. And yeah, so I feel like there is something, I mean, our DNA all comes from Africa essentially, but I feel like there was something there that just resonated with me, that I felt, and that um yeah, I still feel that was something that I had to come to terms with. This isn't supernatural, and I won't dwell on it, but one of the things that I was a real learning experience for me was, in being that, was that there's a difference between being who I am and having the friends and the family who I have, and being black, like I'm obviously not. And so I have to, there's certain things that I have to respect, and there's certain things that I have to, teach myself. When somebody has a reaction to me for my skin color, I have to be like, I am that though. Like, like I can't really be like, oh fuck you, I'm just pale, because that used to be my go-to. Is like,
I'm a
oh,
pale black person.
I'm not white, I'm pale,
I'm an albino.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the sentiment is cool, but it's not cool if you haven't carried that oppression through your whole life. Like, you can't just make yourself something, be like, yeah, that's
Right,
I'm
right.
I'm this today. So I try and be very respectful, even though,
Cultural appropriation.
yeah, even though every
Yeah.
fiber of my being, I go right to it. Like that's my environment, and I still, most of the music I listen to, is from the black community or from black origins, and even some of the stuff that you might not consider, I guess, is still from that origin. But uh, yeah, so that's something that I kind of, a piece of me with an occultish kind of vibe. Um,
Did
that
it make
I
you want to research anything into the occult, like dig deeper into any sort of thing, like
Yeah,
kind of like texts or anything like that?
yeah.
Grimoires?
I look for a lot of stuff, and I'm a hard person to. I wish I could really. When I was younger, I used to be able to get into things a lot more, um, but now I have a problem with, uh, maybe not a problem, but I overthink. I think things through critically so much, to the point where I almost destroy things that have I might have got enjoyment from before. And so it's like, before I really get into this, I want to vet where it came from. Oh, okay, so its origins are here, and this has been dispelled, and this has been dispelled. So, uh, it's all right. Maybe I'll read it later, kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, but there are some things, and history is a big thing for me, and I do delve into that a lot. But I have looked at a lot of things, and I learned, some Latin and some different things like that. And I have song lyrics that are in Latin, and I've made my own kind of chants and spells and things like that. Affirmations. I don't know what you would want to call them exactly. Um, but other than that, I think most of my experience has been with firsthand things. I just kind of chose to start processing and looking into and investigating things that were directly relevant to things that I couldn't explain.
Mhm.
And so that's I guess where I started. And this place that we live in now, um, I was telling you in DMs, we were talking about it. Uh, there's something to this place.
I
Um,
showed my buddy today the pictures that you sent, and he was like, "Holy shit!" Right
yeah,
away, he saw. He's like, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "Look what she said."
yeah, yeah,
What the? I don't
yeah,
know what the fuck this is.
yeah. I don't know. But and I'll tell you, I didn't sleep well the first couple nights. I was very aware, like, because it's one thing having things bang around, or different occurrences happen, or things get knocked off shelves in other rooms at the same time, or different things that you can't explain, loud knocking, um, pounding, even, and not just like a pipe, like bang, 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 bang,
Yeah,
like very poignant things. And you open up the door to your hallway at 3 in the morning, and there is fucking nobody there, and there's no where anybody went. Like there's certain things that you can. I remember smelling brimstone, like sulfur, just like match, like somebody lit matches, and we couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And so there's been different things, um, but all in all, I feel like those are maybe things that, for lack of a better term, walk with me. I don't know if there's things that are in this place, or if it's from the real estate we're on, or if it's from people that lived here, or I don't know what it is, but
something that's followed you for your whole life, right?
perhaps, or in when I started really writing and pulling introspectively, I would come in here in my studio, and I would turn all of the lights out in the dark, and I would just kind of freestyle things. And so, for example, one of the songs that we haven't released yet, I want to, it just needs a little bit more work. It's kind of a tacky name. The working title is Tears Like Ice. And the song was about being dead in the afterlife, and seeing people that were still alive, and kind of pining to be with the living again, kind of being
Right, right.
watching this. And um it's very chant like. I repeat the same thing over and over again, because it's kind of meant to be almost like it is like a prayer or a chant. And so I wrote that and recorded it, and it hasn't happened in 3 or 4 years. But for the first year with that I had wrote it in, I think three, possibly four times, I had it start playing on my sound system, like in my computer, in another room while I was out cooking, and I could hear the first notes of it, and it's kind of like that slow burn where you hear the song start and you don't think anything of it because you've been listening to it so much, and then you're like, whoa, wait, and your hair's all stand up. You're like, why is that fucking playing? Right? Like, how is that playing? And you come in and the song's playing and you turn it off and you're just like, and why that song of all of the songs that I have recorded, why does this one like to autoplay?
Right. Like at random.
Just, yeah, like out
Yeah.
of, like, so, and I tried I have a wireless mouse, and I tried hovering it over on my iMac. I tried hovering it over, leaving it over the file to see if I walked out, or if maybe there was a flicker in the laser of the mouse and it double clicked by accident, like glitched or something. I could never make that happen. And then sometimes it's like that song is on iTunes or in my iTunes, when that the old version of iTunes that used to be able to have, your own music downloaded into as a player.
Hmm.
It happened a couple times there, and uh, Seven lives with me, and so she came home from work, and I told her about it, and you know how it is when you tell somebody something that's kind of, I don't know, it's unbelievable, like it's almost too incredible to really process. It's not that you don't believe them, but you didn't see it yourself, and you're just like, oh
Right.
wow, yeah, that's
It
fucked up.
feels like the person that's telling you what happened to them is that the person that's hearing it is like, oh, this person is over embellishing what just happened,
Embellishing,
right?
or
Yeah.
maybe misunderstood the situation, or
Hmm.
they missed the thing. And so, and I told her about it, and then it was like a week later, and we were cooking in the kitchen, and it came on, and I just looked at her and pointed, and I could see the gears turning, and it's like, wow, that happened. Like, and I'm like, yeah, it's happened to me at least 3 times, and it's only ever been that song. Like, why that song so specifically, right? And um yeah, so, and there's been a couple other ones. There's a song that we do called Lotion, uh and that has like chants that I wrote in it, and it's uh what it was, what the I'm paraphrasing loosely what the chant was: unseen spirit work through my body, like kind of manifest. And you can take that all types of different ways. You can take it dark like possession, or you can just take it as, give me strength to, be the person I want to be. And I leave my lyrics open to interpretation. But um, after rehearsing that a few times in the rehearsal space, we had a vacant apartment across the hall for a number of years. This building is owned by somebody we knew, and they just, before they renovated, that was open, and we just had it for storage. And I would go over there and rehearse. It's kind of, I would roll my whole setup over there with the speakers and just rehearse. And one night was the banging on the door, and I thought I had been screaming too loud or jumping up and down, and maybe it was like downstairs. There was only one other tenant in the building, and they lived on a different floor and not under me. Um, so, but I was getting out of character, and I kind of didn't want to answer the door in an apartment that I don't own if it was the landlord or the police or something. And I come to the door like this, I'll
Right.
probably got, but um,
What the
yeah,
fuck? What did we just enter Buffalo Bill's apartment or what?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
Fucking
puts the lotion in the basket.
yeah. Well, that's what the title of the song "Lotion" was. I was like a throw, kind of like a throwback to that, the reference
Right,
or.
right, right.
But yeah, and so that was the banging, and there was some weird stuff that happened over there, and I just can't explain it. So I know it doesn't just reside in this apartment. The things that happen here were weird. But as I also said, I've never had a feeling of,
Like evil or
yeah,
bad.
because
Yeah.
I've walked in places and I'm just like, okay, this place is fucked. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know why, but I'm extremely uncomfortable.
You can
And
feel the heaviness and the
there's
energy and the vibe. Yeah.
a palpable, almost like
Yeah.
a humidity in the air that just resonates through you. And you're just like, this isn't a good environment. And, so I've had that where, and you just stay hyper aware the entire time that you're in there. You're just aware of everything and you can't not be. Um, I've never had that here. It's never been,
You're comfortable there. Yeah.
yeah, I don't feel taken over. I don't feel invaded. I feel super at home and comfortable in here. But there has been some weird fucking things go on in this place. And I've never lived in a place where that necessarily happened. I guess my grandparents' place was 160 odd years old on the East Coast. So there was there was a bedroom there that I didn't like. Um, but as far as like being in the house, uh, I never felt, anything really weird there. But here's I've never, this place is so unassuming. It doesn't have that vibe to it, but the things happen here. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I hear you. Like, and we talk about that a lot on my show where, I have had like psychic mediums on my show and stuff like that. And they always talk about how like they feel, and I've experienced it myself where I walk into a certain place and I'm like, there's something I don't like about this place. It's
Yeah,
not it's nothing visual or anything, but it's just that overwhelming feeling that you get where it's like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here right now.
yeah, yeah,
Even when I talk to certain people, I'm like, there's something not right about this person. And they could be like totally normal, but I could feel that sense of,
I have an ability to do that just in a few moments with people's mannerisms, the way that they emote, the way that they talk, the way that they move their eyes, the way that they hold their hands, or the way that I can tell. I think it probably comes from living in the hood for most of my adult life. You become very in tune with when somebody approaches you, what their intentions might be or whatever. And but um yeah, it's yeah, so I don't get that here, but I have had that where you just know something isn't cool.
yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. There was something on my mind. Oh, Erinyes, the name.
Greek mythology.
Yes, three goddesses. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, they're kind of like the the gods of fury, or the goddesses of fury and revenge. And that was even from a cathartic sense or an artistic sense, that was everything that I write and everything I do comes from a place of either, you know, physical violence, mental abuse, the many aspects of different things that I've incurred in my life. And a large portion of my life, I've felt like I am born to be uh, just abused, or a loser, or to not win, or to not succeed, or to not deserve anything, or to not. And so I kind of fashioned the living my life in peril, essentially. I just thought that name is very succinct.
That connected very well. Yeah.
And to have that, which is kind of like the status, and then the last name is the mantra, and just to be furious and to be untamable, and to, even not in a violent sense, exact revenge, but just to, even if you look at it like proving people wrong, to
Mhm.
be who I am, to be the age I've been, to have survived the things that I've survived, and to have sacrificed what I've sacrificed. I thought if I took the name, it would it would be me. And it is.
And it allows you to cathartically express your inner self and project it um with that name that you've attached to your persona. You're able to cathartically express your inner turmoil and kind of release it and do the inner shadow work in yourself, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the drawings for the Erinyes, and you see them, and their posturing, and the expressiveness that they do in the situations, and then if you look at live footage of us on stage, if you look at the stills, it's sometimes I'm not even trying to emulate that, but it's uncanny, like some of
It
the
happens. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I love that happens. Like it's cool for me.
I was sharing your photos and your music with my eldest brother and his girlfriend, and they were texting me back and telling me stuff. And his girlfriend was like, "That's true talent to be able to walk in stilettos like that on stage."
Yeah, it's definitely, you have to train. So I can full out sprint, jump, or you just have to, the key is learning how to treat the bottoms of your stilettos so that you don't slip and bust your ass in front of everybody on stage.
I'm
I'm
sure. Are you a Kiss fan at all?
so yes, uh not in the sense of like I know their entire musical catalog or anything like that. So an interesting fact was, my dad, when I was 1 or 2 years old. I don't have very much recollection of it, and I don't know how much of it is things that they told me about that I'm kind of putting a picture in my brain, and kind of manifesting a false memory. But my dad took me to see Kiss, back in the 70s when I was a baby, and sorry, maybe it was 80s, late 80s. No, when did they? So they had just, it was just before they did,
I can tell you anything. Let me-
just before they lost the makeup.
Okay, so that was so they did have makeup on then?
Yes.
So that would be Creatures of the Night tour.
Yeah. So apparently
That'd be about 82.
dad had me on his shoulders at this concert, and Gene Simmons spit blood on us.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so that's like the coolest fucking thing ever. Um, so yeah, I've always liked Kiss, and I've always had an appreciation, especially like because I kind of feel like it connects me to my dad. Um, but then, like later on when I was listening to music, it was like the Heavens on Fire, and I think I had it on a mixtape of some sort, and Rock and Roll Crazy Nights maybe was another one that no,
Crazy
that's,
Nights, yeah.
oh, that, yeah, Crazy Night. This, I'm thinking, dude, I'm thinking of Loudness. Do you remember
I
them?
I love what a band? Loudness?
Yeah, from
Oh no,
Japan.
I don't know. No.
So they were a Japanese band, and they had a
Oh,
song
okay.
called "Rock and Roll Crazy Nights," but the full Japanese accent was in the vocals, so it was like, it was like, I can't even remember how it went now, but it was when I grew up, I listened to it back after not having listened to it for a while. I was like, oh my god. this is wild. Yeah, but yeah, Kiss. I'm especially as an originator. You know, between Kiss and Alice Cooper, like those guys um, pioneered theatrical, presentation and stuff like that. So I have a great deal of respect for those origins.
I love shock rock and any kind of band with masks. Not all of them, but like Hollywood Undead is a good one.
Yeah, they
Um,
had some cool stuff going for a minute. That Crazy Train sample that they used.
yeah, but yeah, Slipknot, Kiss, of course, Alice Cooper, Guar, even Guar is awesome. I only got to see them once, but I got sprayed with when they beheaded George W. Bush's head, and I was in the second tier up, and Oderus had just cut the head off George W. Bush, and he saw me with my white Guar shirt on. And he was just like, "Poof," and I was just like,
Oh,
"Oh, drenched, eh?" I thought I was going to avoid it, but no, I got drenched. And then I went to a Tim Hortons drive-through after, and I was just
blood
like
all.
covered in red and green dye. It was hilarious.
Oh my god. I just got out of an exorcism. Don't mind the blood and the vomit. Uh, a large double double, please.
Do you have any crazy after show experiences to share?
So let me think. No, oddly enough, not so much with this project. I think this project is so crazy that uh, just the normality of it is it kind of dwarfs a lot of the other things. So no, most of my weird happenstances have happened in other bands.
Okay.
One time, for example, uh, I was playing a bar on the East Coast, and my girlfriend at the time, I thought she was cheating on me, and so she didn't want to come to this show that was in a town like an hour or two away. And so I was like, okay, well, fuck you then. And I'm going to go have fun because I'm probably going to be single after this weekend anyway, because she's probably going to cheat. So I met this really hot waitress at this club and we hit it off. So, and at the time I was like the flamboyant guitar player with the hair down to my ass, and it was kind of a chick magnet, if I do say so without any ego. um that was like my thing. And there was this other lady in the audience that apparently had taken to me, and she kept on trying to get up on the stage, and security would pull her off, and she would try and get up on the stage and hug me while we're mid song, and I'm like, fuck, this is crazy. And at the end of the night, I was like super stoked. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hook up with this hot waitress, and I noticed that she had got into an altercation with this woman because the woman didn't like that I was being friendly with the waitress and not
Okay.
her. And it turned into a fist fight
Between them two?
between those two. And as I took a second take, I realized there was three people in the middle of it, and one of them was my girlfriend at the time, who
No way.
decided to show up. And
No
so,
way.
like, this three woman brawl over me, and security took me out through the back door and took me out of the building to because the show was over anyway. And I just remember our singer at the time uh, getting up on stage and saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, so and so has left the building," and it was just a big kerfuffle. And that was one of my favorite rock starish memories. I'm like, that's some shit that would happen to a famous person. That's pretty cool that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah. No, that's pretty wild.
I love the chaos.
That's awesome.
Other things that have happened, bar brawls, and I remember on one occasion somebody tried to assault our bass player while we were on stage, and he had a Ibanez, one of the old school Ibanez with the pointy headstock, and he just jabbed the guy in the teeth and knocked all his teeth out.
Holy shit.
That
Why?
happened. What's that?
Why did he do that?
Because the guy was trying to hit him with something while he was
Oh,
playing.
okay, okay.
Yeah, the guy charged him on stage, and he just backed up and was just like jab, and took the dude's grill out.
It's too bad that Dimebag Daryl didn't get a chance to do that to his fucking killer, you know?
Yeah,
Fuck,
that's
that was horrible.
that haunts me to this day.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's
I couldn't believe it. I was just heartbroken, you know? Like I got to see Pantera, and I think it was 97.
yeah.
You know, before they broke up and then Damage Plan came out, right? But after hearing that, I was just in complete shock and disbelief. Like,
I never got to see Dimebag in any in Damage Plan or Pantera.
you never did, eh?
Never got to see.
I did get to meet Mike Patton twice.
Really,
Yeah,
that,
I'll send you a picture of me and him together.
that's amazing.
Uh, he's fucking totally cool. I've heard horror stories about how much of an asshole he is,
Yeah,
but no, like he's with his fans, he's fucking totally awesome.
that's awesome.
Um, Another time when I saw Slipknot in 99, this was in 99 when they were just hitting it big.
Wow.
They were opening for Mudvayne, and I got to see their last song before Mudvayne came on.
No
And
shit.
after the show, I go outside and I see a tour bus there, and somebody from Slipknot was signing autographs. I didn't realize until years later that it was actually Sid
Oh, nice.
without his mask, right?
Yeah.
And he was standing there, and he was signing autographs. He kept looking up into the crowd because he saw somebody with a camera, and they wanted to maintain anonymity at that time, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the guy actually took the picture, and Sid threw everything down and ran after the guy, right?
Wow.
And then this one guy comes up to me, and he saw my California Mr. Bungle hoodie, right? And this guy was really short, pasty white skin, and he had long black hair and red coming down on both sides.
Oh shit.
And it was Joey, right?
Wow.
He came up to me and he's like, "Nice sweater, dude." And I'm like, "Thanks, man." And I didn't realize it was Joey at that exact moment. But then as soon as I connected with him a bit, I realized it was him. And he's like, "Look at this." And he pulls up his sweater and he's got a Phantomas shirt on.
Wow.
And I'm like, "No way, dude." So like we hit it off there, right? I was like, "Fuck, this is awesome." And then he signed my ticket stub, and it was just totally such a cool fucking moment. Now rest in power, Joey, right?
Yeah.
Fuck, all
It's
these greats are just
fucking
dying off.
wild. I know when you look at it's terrible because yeah, and we did last wow, I guess it's been a year since we did that show with Wednesday 13, and
Oh, okay.
those guys were there, and I did a lot of thinking about Joey when I was watching that, and I was because I know he's doing the Murder Dolls kind of a reunion type of vibe,
Right, right,
celebrating
right.
Joey, and yeah, it was just really cool to be in that proximity because that was his people.
One of my one of my things is that like a lot of people, because I posted stories of your band and your image and everything, and I've had people reply to it like, okay, that's terrifying. And I just laugh, right? I just laugh. And one of my things is that I want to do while I'm interviewing musicians, especially with an image like yours, is to just humanize you. You know, you are a human being. You're not this monster. You're just somebody
Allegedly.
who has a character, right? Allegedly, right? Yeah. But that's what I like to do, like, because I know everybody's just out there doing their fucking thing, right? But people look at somebody such as yourself and they get fucking scared. I'm like, dude, this is just another human being expressing their art to the world. There's nothing to be scared of, you know?
That's part of the thing, is that
Like
there's a
even Guar, for example, like Dave Brockie, Odorous was one of the most fucking down to earth dudes there ever was. But he portrays this himself in art form as this fucking monster from outer space who came down to the Arctic to fucking rule over humans, right? It's hilarious.
he's living his alternate truth.
Yeah. The reality that he created for himself, right? He
Yeah,
didn't let he didn't let the elite people in this world dictate who he wanted to be.
that was the
And
thing.
this is what I see from you as well, right?
Yeah,
Like you're creating your own persona, your reality, and you're portraying it to the world. And how
there was
you
there's been like
you
different, right, of like entertainment where things were over the top all the time, and then
yeah.
that to a point where it was just, when something abnormal is everywhere, it's not abnormal it becomes the norm, right? And
Mhm.
so the the thing to do to rail against that is to be the opposite of that thing. So you see these swells, for different time periods of things, and then the next thing that happened was, after the 80s hair metal thing, it was grunge, right? Because
Mhm.
everybody was scared of, if everything is on 10 all the time, the new 10 is zero, right? And
Or
so,
11.
and I got so bored, like, with the whole, there's nothing wrong if that's who you are, like, by all means be who you are. But when it becomes a fashion trend to just be wearing some Dickies and a plaid shirt, and if you do anything other than that, you're you're doing too much, or you're
Right.
fake, or you're not talented, and it's just you're trying to compensate for your lack of musical ability. And I've always thought that was bullshit. I mean, sure, there are instances where that's true, but it's not always the instance, and so with this, I was just like, man, I am so fucking bored with just the way that everything. I want to see a show. I want to see some crazy shit. I want to see, some weird stuff happen.
Some
And
chaos magic.
yeah, and so you have to decide to be the change you want to see. And so, I did this, and all of this came from this, like, this
Just
is
that.
that's where it started,
The
right?
template, yeah.
And I was like, but this looks like shit, and it's, that lots of people can do this, and anybody can do this. So I, decided to fashion my own. And so the eyes, the mouth, there's different generations of how that went. But I just wanted to make something that was almost lifelike, but clearly not. And I think that's part of the reason that this scares the shit out of people, because it's almost tangible, but it's not. There's something that, our faces aren't symmetrical. So this has perfect symmetry. So instantly, just by the symmetry of this mask, it's off putting. You know,
Yeah.
People's brains are saying, hey, there's something weird about this person, or the lack of expressiveness, or the way that this jaw is hinged, kind of has like a smiley cut face type of, there's different things, right? And my eyes are always so black that you can't really
That's
see.
one of the fun things I like examining your imagery was actually when I see a close up of you and actually seeing your pupils, your eyes and your mouth and your teeth.
Yeah,
I'm like I can almost see, but I can't, you know? It's
yeah.
like the mystique about it all is what intrigues me so much.
And that was the reason, because I often thought, like, why not just do makeup at this point, and or and everybody is like, no, leave that shit and don't fucking take it off, and you know don't do what Slipknot and Kiss and those guys, like, keep it fucking mysterious, and because
Yeah.
it drives people to want to know, and also it has an energy that is unique, and there's nobody doing exactly what we're doing, and
How difficult is it for you to maintain an anonymity? Is other people out there that have figured you out already?
at this point it's pretty easy, because there are some people who are like big fans of what we do, and they follow us.
I actually do know already, but
Yeah,
I'm keeping the magic alive by not revealing it in this
yeah, thank you.
podcast.
Yeah, thank you. um at some point, if we ever gain any type of momentum or whatever, I suppose I'll have to really go in. But at this point, it's just loose. Like, everybody that knows me, and
Of course, yeah.
that I just try to, like, I will go to a show, and I will not take my, even after the show, like, I stay in character. Sometimes I will drive off in the fucking U-Haul with this mask on, and not till I leave, just because, yeah, it's like there's
That's cool though. Like I would enjoy that if I was in your position.
it's hard sometimes, and it's also like when you want to go to a show in character because it's your friend's show, or some type of an event. It's hard because they won't let you in the club with a mask, or like it's not permitted, so you're unable to do those things. But I try.
Too bad you weren't already like or you're not already a household name. Otherwise it'd be like, oh Peril, hey, yeah, come on in, you know?
Yeah, yeah, instead they're like the mask, and they're automatically searching you for a gun. They're like, what type of fucking maniac is this person?
Right,
But
right.
and I understand it, but it does make uh being this person difficult, in certain scenarios. But I found ways to, kind of do my thing. Sometimes I just wear, the surplus of COVID masks that we have laying around,
Yeah.
and
It's Kiss used to put out like a handkerchief over their nose, right?
yeah,
Yeah. I just love it. I love the mystique of bands and imagery like yours. That's why I was very intrigued, and I'm very appreciative of this conversation that you came on, and it's fucking awesome. I could probably talk to you for like 100 years, but I'm gonna kind of end it off here. But like, would you like to let my audience know where they can find you? I'll put all the links in the show notes, but just shout
sure.
it out.
Yeah, just find us on Instagram. Peril Erinyes on Instagram, and my band Phantom High 666. We had to do the 666 because I think Phantom High is, there's a kind of like a doom stoner rock band called Phantom High, in Minnesota, and I think
Okay.
had the Phantom High thing, so we had to do 666. But because I didn't know that Phantom High was like a thing when I picked the name, because I was thinking, kind of like Degrassi Junior High. I was thinking like Phantom
Like a
High.
school.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
but so yeah, but yes, Phantom High 666 on Instagram. Phantomhigh.ca is our website, and you can get everything, all of our merch, all of our other audio links and things like that you can find there.
Awesome. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna put everything in the show notes for my audience, and yeah, listen to Phantom High and check out Peril and the rest of the band. Can you name each band member for me before you leave?
Sure, yeah. So our guitar players are Greg Shear and 7 6, and they're both on Instagram. Our bass player, his name is Faraz. His Instagram name is Head Jabbar. I think it's just I don't know what that means, but that's his. And then right now we are currently looking for a full time drummer. Our friend Carly Forget from Hot Lips is filling in for us on our next show, which is Walter Stock at the Rock Pile. So I'm really stoked that we're playing that. It's a good. We love Walter. Do you know Walter?
No.
So
Oh,
Walter,
yeah, we didn't get into Walter there.
yeah, yeah. Walter is he's a guy that we have seen at almost every show, rock show, like just a huge patron of live rock and metal. And he's kind of like a Toronto icon. And while we were trying to get the band going, we were in the audience with people like Walter and other friends of ours that we really see value in. And Walter passed away, and it made news worldwide. It was on CP24, and there was
Oh,
Walter badges and pictures in Australia and in Europe and just different things like that. But he was a sweet, sweet man, and went to the hospital. Apparently, he had some type of internal injury, and they sent him home, and he died as a result of that because they didn't do the due diligence that they should have done. So,
oh, unfortunate. Yeah.
so we play Walter Stock at the Rock Pile. It's in his memory, and that's our next show on January 6th. So if anybody's in the neighborhood, come out and see that.
That's crazy because there's another show on January 6th where I'm connected with Frail Fragment, Len Lamana,
Oh,
Star Beast.
yes. So
Yeah,
friend Mateus is
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So he's a very very close friend of mine. Yeah, awesome.
yeah. And I got to interview both Star Beast and Glue Leg back to back a few weeks ago, and always been a huge fan of Ruben Huizenga and Chowder and Glue Leg, and it was just like this is where my kind of journey began with connecting with artists and stuff like that and the downtown scene. So yeah, it's a wild ride, and I'm looking forward to what I'm going to be able to do in the future with this show. And Errol, thank you so very much. I highly appreciate you, and stay in touch. And yeah,
Hey,
uh,
reach out anytime you want to come to a show. Hit me up.
awesome, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, you take care of yourself, and I look forward to the future of Phantom High.
Okay, we'll chat more soon.
Awesome. Take care.
Okay, bye bye.